Greetings, everybody. I'm Ken Navarro, and welcome to my podcast, all about the music. For the past several weeks, I have been showing you, bit by bit, how I've composed and recorded a new song, one of 22 songs that I've been working on for an upcoming album. First, we went through the hook or the chorus. I showed you how I wrote that most important part of the song. Then I showed you how I did the intro, each of the verses, an interlude section, the bridge. And last time I showed you how I wrote the section for a guitar solo, an improvised guitar solo. So we only have one thing left to do on this song, and that is the ending. So I want to show you how I wrote the last 8 bars of the song, why I did what I did, and how it all came out. But before we jump into that, I want to catch up with where we're at in the song right now. So to do that, I'm going to play you the bridge, the fast interlude section, a chorus, the repeat of the chorus with a guitar solo, and then the guitar solo. And that will lead us into what I'm going to show you today, which is the ending, the last 8 bars. So let's recap and listen to what we've got up to this point. Okay, so now let's talk about the ending. So I knew I wanted to come back and state the melody again after the improvised solo. And originally I stated it just with one guitar, the way it had been pretty much stated throughout the song. But it sounded kind of like a letdown, frankly, after the big solo and the pit strings that, sent us off into those last 8 bars. So I said, well, wait a minute. At the beginning of the song, I had the chorus melody as a 3-part harmony with 3 guitars. Why don't I do that again, but with a little more activity and liveliness now, because it's not an intro, it's the ending, it's the big ending. And so that's what I did. So let's check that out. So the other thing you might have noticed is I wrote a little bit different for this final chorus. At the end, I used a different harmonic structure to push us into the final chord, the final downbeat. So that was important because I didn't want it to be a fade-out ending. But in order for it to not be a fade-out ending, I needed to actually write an ending. And so that's what I did. The other thing I did was I added the strings in, and I also had the pit strings play a little bit more to keep that high energy thing happening right into the end. So let's check this out. This time, notice that the ending is harmonically different than the other choruses, and then notice the strings and the pit strings and how that all leads to the big final chord. So hopefully you were able to hear those things that I pointed out. That new chordal ending to lead us into the last chord, the strings, the pit strings, just the general excitement of that final chorus and pushing it into a big downbeat at the end. So let's listen to all of this again in context. I'm not going to play the whole song, but I'll start from about halfway through the bridge. Then we'll hear the fast interlude. We'll hear a chorus. Then we'll hear a chorus with a solo guitar filling. Then we'll hear the solo guitar take off. And then that will lead, using the pit strings, into the final 8-bar chorus, which is what we were talking about today. All right, here we go. So there you have it. Through the course of these 8 episodes, we managed to work our way all the way from the intro to the very last chord of the song. If you go back and listen to all 8 episodes, you can easily hear how I put this all together, and I think you'll find it very interesting. And when the final song is released, when the album comes out, and I've made all the different changes to the arrangement that I plan on making and bring certain players in to play certain parts and just a whole lot of other things that happen once I've got a good demo and I've got the written composition and guitar parts recorded. I always try to think of other ways I can make the song better without overdoing it or covering up the good work that I've done. So that is the end of episode 8 and the end of going through this song. I encourage you to go back and listen to all 8 episodes if you have been skipping around. I think it'll make more sense, and I think you'll really get into it if you do it that way. Listen to everything in order. Even if you heard it once, it might be worth going through it all and listening to it again. So next podcast, I'm going to just start to talk about this album and my process in general, how I'm going to get those 22 songs down to 12 or 13, how that whole process works. And I'm looking forward to letting you in on some of the ways that I work when it's in regard to an entire album and how it's all going to fit together. So thank you for listening to my podcast. Again, I'm Ken Navarro. My podcast is called All About the Music, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.